Hello and welcome to Hear the Deer. It is a brand new, I'm going to say show. It's not really. It's just me rambling about certain things in regards to sports. Today I'm going to be talking about what I think my favorite team in the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks, should do regarding Tony Snell and Greg Monroe, two very valuable pieces of support to an overall younger core of Middleton, Antetokounmpo, and Parker. So let's start out with Greg Monroe here. His is going to be the more tense, situation to watch this year because he has a player option, so the Bucks aren't really in control of this. So Monroe has a player option for the 2017-18 season. If he accepts it, he stays in Milwaukee and gets paid $17.88 million next year. And then is an unrestricted free agent after that if the Bucks do not work out an extension with him. I will say this right now, Monroe is a very key part of this team. Despite him coming off the bench, he didn't start a single game in the regular season. In the 81 games he played, no game started. Jason Kidd wanted Thon Maker and John Henson, and also Miles Plumlee before he got traded to start. Monroe came off the bench, and the reason is because the bench was so bad that they couldn't score. And so Monroe provides a spark off the bench. It was actually a very genius move by Jason Kidd. Like him or not, you have to give him credit for some of the moves he's made. So you have a guy who is averaging 11.7 points per game, 6.6 rebounds per game, coming off the bench, playing 22.5 minutes a game. That's off the bench. One of the big criticisms was that his defense and his rebounding were not great in Milwaukee, and that's still kind of the case. His rebounding numbers are down, but again, he did not start a single game. He's playing 7 minutes per game less than he did last year. So, of course, his rebounding numbers are going to go down. His scoring went down. But, of course, that's going to happen. You play less minutes. 7 less minutes is a lot of time. So, the big thing was that his defense and his rebounding weren't that great. Now, however, it's still not perfect, but it's not as bad as it was last year. I'll admit that his defense and rebounding were liabilities last year. And that's how the Bucks would lose some games, is that they couldn't compete inside because they didn't have a defensive presence there. They were so great inside on offense last year, like first in the NBA in terms of points in the paint per game, but they didn't have a hope in hell of defending the paint. And part of it was down to Greg Monroe not being a great defensive player. Well, this year that definitely changed. Again, like I said, 11.7 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, coming off the bench. In the playoffs, it was a totally different story. In the fact that he played all around exceptional basketball on both ends of the floor. 13.2 points per game in the playoffs. Again, didn't start a single game in the playoffs, coming off the bench, providing a spark. 13.2 points per game, 7.3 rebounds per game in 23.5 minutes. That's a minute more than the regular season. That's a rebound more in terms of the average, more or less. So, and that's against the Raptors, the likes of Jonas Valanciunas and Serge Ibaka. So the fact that Greg Monroe is able to do this in the playoffs in the toughest part of the NBA season, a part of the NBA season he has not seen in his career, the fact that he's able to put up 13 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, against very good big men in Toronto, that's a great thing to see, and I think that silenced a lot of the people that had doubts about him. There are still questions, though. There's still questions about his defense. Can he do that consistently? I think the answer is yes. Can he continue to improve his rebounding? Because that's something the team needs. You can't rely on Giannis's 18-foot wingspan to always get you rebounds. But, obviously that helps, but you need your center, starter or backup, the center, you should be rebounding the basketball. So there might be questions about that, but I think that he will just continue to improve. The man is 26 years old. So he's hitting that time where he should be reaching his prime age now. 27 is kind of the magic number that gets thrown out. So we'll see how he's able to perform. If you're the Bucks, I think you have to give him an incredible sales pitch in meetings to get him to stay here. I think he'll stay here regardless, but I think you really want to leave a lasting impression on him so that when his contract is up, you can extend him and keep him in here longer, because it's very clear that he is a vital part of the team, especially coming off the bench, providing a great spark on offense and defense. Going to Tony Snell now. This was quite a shock, I think, to the NBA in general, not specifically to Bucks fans. Snell was acquired in a trade with Chicago. The Bucks sent Michael Carter-Williams over to Chicago, and the Bulls sent Snell in return. And when this trade happened, the commentary was that they were just swapping garbage. And a lot of Bulls fans think they won the trade. They needed a point guard. They got their point guard who once won Rookie of the Year. But it's very clear Michael Carter-Williams is a very, very, very different player from where he was in that Rookie of the Year season. So Snell comes in, regular season, 8.5 points per game. He started all 80 games he played. Again, 8.5 in 29.2 minutes. His shooting was actually very good, 45% from the field in general, 40% from three. This is on a team that was dead last in the NBA in shooting the previous year. So and again, he started out fairly inconsistent, and then there were times where we really have this guy? He's really going to be shooting all these bricks, huh? But then he starts to get into a rhythm. And then we head into the playoffs. And people talk about the Cavaliers flipping a switch when it comes to the playoffs. Tony Snell. You have to wait until you hear the three-point percentage number. So in the playoffs series against the Raptors, he averages 10 points per game. From the field, 50%. From three-point land, get ready, 51% from three-point land. On a team that was dead last in the NBA in shooting last year. 40%, 51%. That's all you need to hear to validate the Bucks picking up his team option. He has a team option for 2017-18. He will make $3.39, so $3.4 million next year if the team picks it up. There is absolutely no reason to not pick it up. They clearly need Snell. 51% from three-point land should be enough to convince the Bucks front office to pick up that option. And if they want to look at his defense, go ahead, because he played phenomenal defense in the series against the Raptors. Game 3, DeMar DeRozan was his matchup. DeRozan, no field goals made out of 8 attempts. He had 8 points all off of free throws. Didn't make a single shot from the field. Some of that comes down to DeRozan being known for, I'm going to say choking. It's not really. It's just he is not great in the playoffs. I guess it is choking, because a lot of it does come down to, can you handle the pressure of the playoffs? But I also think that team wants to play a certain way, and DeRozan doesn't fit in that way. He's not a reliable shooter, whereas you've got players like Lowry, Powell, Joseph, and others who can shoot. So it's kind of a weird mix there, and I know you want to surround people with shooters, but you have one superstar who can shoot, one who can't, and that's going to kind of throw you off. But, again, the bottom line is that in Game 3, he didn't make a single field goal attempt. And like I said, a lot of that comes down to Tony Snell playing exceptional defense on him. It's something that the Bucks haven't had in recent memory. They haven't had these pieces to the puzzle to fit together to contend for the playoffs, contend for the conference, and possibly in a few years the NBA championship. When LeBron's time as the best player in the NBA is done, the Cavs will fall off. The Bucks will emerge. This is the expectation, and I truly think it's going to happen. Not just me being a homer. I think it is definitely going to happen. And yes, it starts with the core of Chris, Giannis, and Jabari, but you need support. And Greg Monroe and Tony Snell are clearly the best players coming off the bench. And in Tony Snell's case, he's starting. Greg Monroe is the best player off the bench on that team. Snell is starting, and I think he should continue to start, obviously. And you've got players like Malcolm Brogdon, Thon Maker, who, and even Matthew Dellavedova. Dellavedova flipped a switch as well in the playoffs, and he brings playoff experience that the team desperately needs because this team hasn't made the playoffs as a unit. Giannis has had one experience in the NBA playoffs in which they got destroyed by the Bulls in Game 6 in Milwaukee. And he wasn't half the player that he is now. Now he's going to become a superstar next year or in 2 years, at the most. And you need that support. And Tony Snell, Greg Monroe, players like that are definitely the support that this team needs to take those next steps and become a power in the Eastern Conference. So that's really all I have to say about it, is that Tony Snell, the team option needs to be picked up. That's a fairly easy decision. Greg Monroe made a good sales pitch to him. He'll come back, because when you're looking at it from Greg Monroe's perspective, he's on a team that has finally given him what he wants, which is playoff contention. A team with someone who will become a superstar very soon and potentially one of the best players in the NBA. And then we can talk about how high his ceiling is. You got a coach who knows how to use you. Clearly, Greg Monroe is not a starter. He is a fantastic bench player. He's not a starter. And I think he knows that. And I think he'll be happy to be collecting $18 million to be basically the sixth man on a team that is contending for the playoffs now and will continue to contend for the playoffs as long as they can keep this core together. When the core is healthy, they are a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. And the fact that they were able to do what they did against Toronto, missing Jabari Parker, is pretty remarkable. So my main motto, I guess, for this would be, it's a big decision regarding Snell and Monroe, because if you don't bring these guys back, I think you take a major step backwards. You take 2 steps backwards if you don't bring these guys back. So it's a big decision in how it affects the franchise going forward, especially because they are young. Tony Snell will be 25 in the 2017-18 season. Monroe will be 26 in that same year. They're young. They have a chance to be there a while. They have a chance to make their careers in Milwaukee. Big decision regarding the future of the franchise, but an easy one as well. Get them both back in Milwaukee, and you can contend for playoffs for quite a while as long as you're able to keep that core as well. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Make sure to subscribe if you did enjoy it, and if you want to receive notifications when I post next. Thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day.